Do you want to try out the new 2024 Druid? Do you want to have a unique twist on the Druid so that it is a grappling polar bear of death and destruction? Hey guys, I'm Warners. I made a lot of Baldur's Gate 3 build videos last year, right around the game's release. I had a lot of fun making those builds, but I got a little burnt out because even though Baldur's Gate 3 is one of my favorite games, there isn't that many builds you can do compared to the game it's based on, Dungeons & Dragons, the TTRPG. I've never officially made a build video for you guys for D&D 5e, and with the new release of 2024 rules, I wanted to start making the build videos with the new books. Let's have a nice swig of tea to warm up. I've always been a big fan of druids and warlocks, and I decided with a lot of the new spell changes and the new way wildshape works and everything, I decided to do a druid warlock build. Now, just so you know, this is still going to be mostly a druid build. Actually, it's only 2 levels of warlock, but I promise you those 2 levels do a lot for this build. It's going to take the advantages of the new way Armor of Agathys works, as well as the new way wildshape works, combined with druid's amazing spell list to create the ultimate grappling polar bear of death and destruction. It's going to be heavily utilizing the Armor of Agathys spell, the new way wildshape works, as well as some temporary hit point shenanigans. So before I get into the actual build, I'm going to go over the rule changes that I'm going to be taking advantage of. I'm going to start with a disclaimer first though. So first of all, as all build videos are, it's very DM dependent. Also, the table I play at, they're not really optimizers besides me and one other person. And that being said, I am an optimizer, but I tend to go with what's thematically better rather than what is mechanically better. But that doesn't mean I still don't focus on power. This build will be very powerful, but there are some decisions made just to keep with the flavor of the build. Also, instead of focusing on one specific playstyle for the build, I like to make builds that give you a lot of options of things you can do in different situations. Because I don't know about your DM, but my DM likes to throw a lot of weird stuff at us, and I like my character to be able to react in different ways. Also, I want to say this in a way where people will still want to watch the video if they really like the average numbers. For this first build, I'm not going to do the exact math for all the damage in the build, mostly because, like I said a second ago, you're going to have a lot of options of things to do in different situations. I will mention numbers from time to time, but it's not going to be based on enemy AC or enemy save DCs. It's going to be based around if you hit, what damage you can expect. And I feel like most people with that information, they can kind of figure out what you would actually expect in an actual session. Everyone knows that you're not always going to hit with your attacks. Also, with this build, utilizing the Armor of Agathys spell a lot, I don't know how often you're going to be hit. The build is built in a way that you'll get hit more often than the average character would, but I don't know what your DM is going to do. So with that out of the way, I'm going to start going over the rule changes that I'm going to be focused on, like I said, and then we'll go through the build afterwards. So first of all, I want to start with the fun part. I want to start with talking about Armor of Agathys changes, because this is one of the main mechanics I wanted to mess with to see how I could kind of cheese it a bit, you know? I could see what I could do with it. So first of all, this is old Armor of Agathys. Costs an action to cast, and protective magical force surrounds you, manifesting as a spectral frost that covers you and your gear. You gain 5 temporary hit points for the duration. If a creature hits you with a melee attack while you have these hit points, the creature takes 5 cold damage. So essentially what that means is if you get hit, they take 5 cold damage as long as you have the hit points. And if you get hit for 3 damage, they take 5 damage. It's not based on their damage, it's based on the temporary hit point maximum you acquired when you cast the spell. It also upcasts at higher levels. When you cast the spell using a spell slot of 2nd level or higher, both the temporary hit points and the cold damage increase by 5 for each slot. So that's 2014 Armor of Agathys. Now this is the new version of Armor of Agathys. So main changes are, it is now a bonus action, which is amazing. Oh, by the way, duration is an hour. That's the same. So it's the same. Everything says the same here, but except right here, this is the new line. The spell ends early if you have no temporary hit points. The old version says you gain 5 temporary hit points for the duration. If a creature hits you with a melee attack while you have these hit points, the creature takes 5 cold damage. So the old version of Armor of Agathys says when you have these hit points from this spell, The new version of Armor of Agathys says the spell ends early if you have no temporary hit points. So what that means is if you get temporary hit points from another source, then you can use those instead. Also, I'm going to show you the differences now between wildshape and polymorph in 2024, because this is where we get our alternative use of temporary hit points. So the new wildshape, instead of taking on the hit points of the wildshape creature, it says the old version is, let's say you want to wildshape into a brown bear and it has like 30 something hit points. When you wildshape into the brown bear, you literally become the brown bear and you have a separate set of hit points from the brown bear. And those hit points, when you get depleted, let's say you have 30 hit points, brown bear hit points, and you take 40 damage. You get brought back down, put back into your druid form. You're no longer a bear, you're back to your humanoid form, and then you take 10 damage. That's essentially how it works. But in the new version, you just get temporary hit points in your wild shape. When you lose those temporary hit points, you don't get knocked out of wild shape. And this is how much you get. So as a base druid, when you assume a wild shape form, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to your druid level. And we'll get into it later, but it becomes more than that when you select the Moon Druid subclass, which is what we will be selecting. Now, this is the one that's a bit of a stretch, okay? So bear with me with this one. This is not necessary for the build. Just want to make that clear. The build still works really well without this. But druids get polymorph. They always did. But polymorph works in a very similar way to the way that wild shape works with druids now. Here's one of the main differences though, is a base druid gets temporary hit points equal to their level, okay? Polymorph, you get temporary hit points equal to the creature. Now, I want to preface this by saying we don't have the 2024 monster manual yet. So we technically don't have that many stat blocks to compare it to. They gave us some in the PHB, but we don't have evidence for the exact HP amounts of the new monster manual beasts. But going on 2024 rules, so again, this is a 2014 stat block, but we have the giant ape, which is a huge beast. Polymorph specifically says you can polymorph into beasts equal to the challenge rating of the target. So if you cast polymorph on yourself, you can polymorph into something with a challenge rating of 7 or lower. The giant ape is a 7 challenge rating, and this 2014 version of the giant ape has 157 hit points. So unless that changes when the new monster manual comes out, I'm assuming it'll be similar to this. It might be a little bit lower or a little bit higher, probably a little bit lower, but not by much. Then you will take on 157 hit points. And you know what? Giant ape is a pretty good form to be in. Again, you have to concentrate on it though. But like, let's say you have Armor of Agathys. Let's say you cast it at 4th level because you have 4th level spell slots because you're casting polymorph. That's the 20 damage that people are taking when they're hitting you, but you have 157 hit points. So it'll stay on you longer. Now that's rules as written. Every DM, they might not like it, but every DM should accept that that is how it is, rules as written. Not all DMs are like that, but let's say you have a very kind DM. This is technically, from what I can tell, this is how it works, rules as written. But like I said, it's kind of weird. And kind of broken, so your DM might say no. The way that temporary hit points work in the new PHB are kind of weird, especially when it comes to polymorph. So in the old version of temporary hit points in 2014, there's this very specific line where in the 2014 rules, it says, unless a feature that grants you temporary hit points has a duration, they last until they are depleted or you finish a long rest. So what that means in 2014 is that polymorph, if you lose concentration on it or the duration runs out, I think it's just, or the duration runs out, then you lose those temporary hit points. However, if you look at the new 2024 temporary hit points, it says this: temporary hit points last until they're depleted or you finish a long rest. Doesn't say anything about duration. And this is very specifically written differently than the 2014. They specifically wrote it this way. So as far as I can tell, what that means is if you cast polymorph on yourself and you take the giant ape form, you can then stop concentrating on it if you don't want to be in the giant ape form, and you can keep the 157 temporary hit points. That's pretty crazy. So yeah. there's that. But remember, we're a druid, we're wild shaping, we're already gaining temporary hit points from wild shaping, so it's still a really good build even if you don't use polymorph. But this is this is a possible thing you could do with this build. Okay, just wanted to preface that. And then one last thing I need to preface this with. This is something that your DM might challenge you on. I want to prove to you that this is how it works. Okay, so in this build, I'm going to be utilizing feats and abilities that specifically say they can be used for an unarmed strike. Technically, if you look at a lot of beast stat blocks, or all beast stat blocks, there's nothing that says unarmed strike for their attacks. But I want to tell you that based on what I am reading here, any attack that is not, I'll just read it. It says, instead of using a weapon to make a melee attack, you can punch, kick, headbutt, or similar forceful blow in game terms. This is an unarmed strike. A melee attack that involves you using your body to damage, grapple, or shove a target within 5 feet of you. Whenever you use an unarmed strike, you can use one of the following options for its effect. So yeah, so basically a bear's claws, a bear's bite, all of that is an unarmed strike, meaning any feat or ability that says you can change unarmed strikes in a certain way. This is your proof that you can unarmed strike in wild shape, and you can also grapple and shove, which is awesome. Very fun. Okay, so with that out of the way, I'm going to start with the build now. Okay, 2024 does character builder a bit differently. We're on D&D Beyond. We're just gonna build it in D&D Beyond just because it's easier for me. A lot of you guys probably use D&D Beyond, so it's just a nice visual so you guys can easily make this character. So we're starting with Warlock 1, and the main things we're gonna grab for Warlock 1, do whatever you want for your Warlock core traits. I am picking up Eldritch Mind for the invocation because the 5 available to us at this level are Armor of Shadows, Eldritch Mind, Pact of the Blade, Chain Tome. I just feel like being able to concentrate on your spells when you're a character that's going to be utilizing Armor of Agathys a lot makes the most sense because you get advantage on Constitution saving throws to maintain concentration on your spells. That's tea I'm pouring, don't worry. I feel like that's the most important thing. And then the spells. So as far as cantrips go, you probably should go for Eldritch Blast just because Eldritch Blast is an amazing cantrip. I, on the other hand, really want to lean into the frost damage side of this build. And so Warlocks do not have access to Ray of Frost, which surprised me. But I feel like Mind Sliver is a pretty good cantrip to have. If I'm not going to be using it often, there might be times where I want to make my saving throws more likely to hit, and I have the option to use Mind Sliver. I'm not going to have that good of a to hit, so having it be a saving throw on intelligence is also good. My charisma is not going to be very high, so like most things have a low intelligence, so it's also that's also a reason. Prestidigitation, that's just a great cantrip. Now, this is the important spells. Both of these are important, actually. So Armor of Agathys, obviously, that's one of the whole reasons we're doing this build. So you get your Armor of Agathys, and then Witch Bolt. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, who haven't really looked into the new rules, Witch Bolt, that spell sucks. Yes, it did suck. It now no longer sucks, and I'll explain why. So the original spell, how it worked is you would cast it as an action. It would do 1d12 damage, and then every turn you could cast it again as an action and do 1d12 damage, and it required concentration, and if the target got too far away from you, the spell would end. And 1d12 is slightly higher than the cantrip at level 1, so yeah, it requires concentration, so most people never took this spell. But now this is how it works, is beam of crackling energy lances towards a creature within range, forming a sustained arc of lightning between you and the target. Make a ranged spell attack against it. On a hit, the target takes 2d12 lightning damage. On each of the subsequent turns, you can take a bonus action to deal 1d12 lightning damage to the target automatically, even if the first attack missed. And again, like I said, your charisma isn't going to be very high, so you're not going to be using this spell that long, but for level 1, it's pretty okay. Spell ends if the target is ever outside the spell's range if it has total cover. So basically what happens is you initially do 2d12, and then every turn as a bonus action you can do 1d12. This will be really great if it hits, if you are in wild shape, because you can wild shape and then cast this spell, do the damage, and then you could do your normal attack, and you can concentrate on spells when you're in wild shape. So then you can bonus action hit them with lightning while you're a bear. That's cool. Anyway, though, for level 1, most people experience level 1 for like 1 session. So yeah, let's do background now, though. So I decided to go with the Sage background, and you're going to pick Wisdom because our Wisdom is going to be our highest ability. And then for spells, Ray of Frost. Again, this is mostly just to go with the theme of frost damage. A frigid beam of blue-white light streaks towards a creature. You do 1d8 cold damage, and the speed is reduced by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. That's important, guys, okay? The reducing speed is nice. Whatever other cantrip you want. And then shield, again, you're going to want to get hit a lot because we're doing the Armor of Agathys build. But if you don't want to get hit, for example, ranged attacks do not proc the Armor of Agathys damage. They don't, like, it doesn't work. Sorry, I'm using World of Warcraft terms. So if you're getting hit by an arrow and you want to keep those precious Armor of Agathys hit points and you don't want to waste them on an arrow, boom, shield, and you're good. Will you be able to cast that in wild shape? No, but like shield is still good to have. Let's say you didn't get into wild shape yet. As far as ability score improvements, want to go Constitution and Wisdom. This is so weird because you do your ability score improvements before you do your ability scores, but yeah, it'll be this. And then species. I feel like this is going to be what everyone picks for builds for a long time. It's just so good. We're going Goliath. First of all, you get a 35 movement speed, which is nice for what we're trying to do. And Goliaths now have different abilities based on their ancestry. As I've said, we're going for a icy bear, polar bear. So we're going for Frost Giant. We get Frost Chill. When you hit a target with an attack roll or deal damage to it, you can also deal 1d6 cold damage to that target and reduce its speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. Basically, you're doing Ray of Frost, but it can be on a spell like Ray of Frost or on a melee attack. Meaning, for level 1, we have Ray of Frost. We can cast Ray of Frost, and we can slow someone by 20 feet and do 1d8 plus 1d6 cold damage at level 1 with cantrips. Again, you can only use Frost Chill, your proficiency bonus, but again, you're level 1. So who cares? And then character level 5, as a bonus action, you can make yourself large size, which is cool. That could be beneficial. I don't think this works in wild shape. If it does work in wild shape, that would be amazing. But most wild shapes are large size. So this will only be helpful if you are a medium-sized bear, which we'll look at stat blocks later, but I think most of them are large size. Maybe the black bear is medium. Then you get powerful build. You have advantage on any ability check you make to end the grapple condition. There's a funny TikTok I made of this for some reason at D&D Beyond. I don't know if it still does it, but it shows that you have advantage on every ability check, like investigation, to end the grapple condition. So yeah, hopefully they fix that, but we'll see. And your languages, whatever. Now guys, this is where things get a little awkward. So we're going point by. I'm gonna make a poll later. How many of you guys just roll your stats? I've always just rolled my stats in the groups I play with. I'm curious how common that is. I'm doing point by though, because that's what I feel like is the most fair. And usually if you roll your stats, you're probably gonna get better results. So that being said, we're very mad, which is multi-ability score dependent. It's mostly because of the feat choices I am picking. This probably is very confusing when you first look at it. First of all, we need at least 13 in wisdom and 13 in charisma for our classes, which is Warlock and Druid. And then we want a higher constitution because we're going to be, kind of tanky. And wild shape stays after your temporary hit points go away. So your regular hit points still matter.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Shut up, Siri. I'm not talking to you.
Okay.
And then you're going to want 13 strength, and that is specifically for a feat, not for any other reason. And then dex, You're gonna have a pretty low EC, okay, guys? But remember, pretty soon you're gonna get wild shape, and when you're wild shaped, you take on the physical stats of the wild shape creature, and specifically the new wild shape, your wisdom modifier is added to the AC. Guys, I misread it specifically for Moon Druid, which we'll eventually get. Until you leave the form, your AC equals 13 plus your wisdom modifier if that total number is higher than the beast AC. So there you go. There it is. Anyway, so our stats are kind of weird, but honestly, with Moon Druid, you basically just need high wisdom because you're going to be wild shaped a lot and the other things don't matter. Equipment. Just take the Sage's starting equipment and get 100 gold. Get yourself some studded leather with that 100 gold and save up to get half plate, okay? I picked quarterstaff because you'll be able to cast Shillelagh on it if you're ever not in wild shape, you know? So that'll be nice. Okay, level 2, we're gonna go ahead and go into Druid. This is mostly just so we can get wild shape going as quickly as possible. And Primal Order, go Warden. This is so you can gain proficiency in martial weapons and training with medium armor. So this is so that you can eventually get that half plate, like I said. And then that's level 2. I'll talk about spells real quick. Pick up Shillelagh, and the rest just pick your favorite. Doesn't really matter. Guidance is okay now. You only get 2 though at level 1. I would probably pick up Thorn Whip because you'll see the shenanigans we're doing later. And as far as spells, again, Ice Knife for theme, but again, it's pick your favorite. This level isn't that important when it comes to spells. Fairy Fire is probably good. Entangle is probably good. I would probably get Entangle, Ice Knife for the theme. I could see myself going for Long Strider, Healing Word for sure. And yeah, that's probably good. Level 2, you don't really get many more options. You do get Wild Shape though. We don't have the Moon Druid Wild Shape though. So basically what's going to be happening for this character is you have a lot of first level spell slots. So you can cast Armor of Agathys a few times and you can wild shape, but your wild shape hit points will just be equal to your druid level, which right now it is like you're level 2, so you'll have 2 temporary hit points. So it's probably not worth wild shaping ever in this level tier. But then we get to level 3. This is where things get nice. You go Moon Druid and we get some amazing features. Like I said, the maximum challenge rating for the form equals your druid level divided by 3, rounded down. So level 3, we get challenge rating 1 creatures. Your armor class equals 13 plus your wisdom modifier if the total is higher than the beast AC. That's really good. You gain a number of temporary hit points equal to 3 times your druid level. So now our temporary hit points is 9, which is higher than Armor of Agathys. And you get Circle of the Moon spells. You get Cure Wounds, Moonbeam, and Starry Wisp auto prepared for you at level 3, which is awesome. And then eventually you get Conjure Animals, Font of Moonlight, and Mass Cure Wounds. Also, you can cast all these spells while you're in wild shape, which I think is amazing. So we're looking pretty good. We're character level 4, okay? This is where things get interesting, and I want to know what you guys think about this. It's kind of crazy what 2 levels of Warlock do for you. So we're going to Warlock level 2, and we are getting Lessons of the First Ones. And then we are getting, we can't do it on here because D&D Beyond is weird, Lessons of the First One. I'll read you Lessons of the First Ones, okay? You have received knowledge from an elder entity of the multiverse, allowing you to gain 1 origin feat of your choice. Repeatable. You can gain this invocation more than once. Each time you do so, choose a different origin feat. And we get 2 feats that we can pick at this level. So again, you could do Devil Sight shenanigans. If you're really worried about your AC outside of wild shape, you could get Armor of Shadows. If you want to mess with Mask of Many Faces, you can do that. But having 2 origin feats with the origin feat you already get, for a total of 3 origin feats, like that's amazing. So we're gonna manually add them real quick. And this is helpful for anyone who doesn't know this. You can manually add any feat to your character, and this is how we'll do it. We go to features and traits, you go to manage feats, and then you just add it. And so we get 2 new origin feats. The origin feats we're gonna go for is tough. This is just to generally get our hit points higher. Like right here, we got 48. That's really good. And then the second one we're gonna get is Tavern Brawler, if I can find it. Tavern Brawler. And so we're a level 5 character now. Because we're level 5, I want to kind of run you down our build we have going, like what everything will look like, you know? And to really show you what that is like, I think I should show you the stat blocks, because even though we don't have the monster manual out, the PHB did add the 2024 beast forms. So here is one of the new 2024 beast forms. This is the black bear, but at this level, if you're a normal druid, you can wild shape into this. So we could wild shape into this when we were level 2. I think maybe that's too high, actually. Let me know in the comments. Brown bear though, so it is 17 strength, 12 dex. You'll have a 16 armor class because your wisdom is added plus 13. You got all this shit going on. You got dark vision. We got multi attack. The bear makes 1 bite attack and 1 claw attack, which are both considered unarmed strikes, and that is a 1d8 plus 3, around 7 average. Your attack rolls plus 5, and then your claw plus 5, and it's 1d4. And then this is crazy, guys. The claw, it says, and the target has the prone condition if it is huge or smaller. There's no saving throw. It has the prone condition if it is huge or smaller. Huge or smaller. This bear is large. It's knocking down a huge beast and it's automatically made prone. That's amazing. Also, look, your speed 40 and you got a climbing speed. Great stat block, okay? It's pretty similar to the original brown bear stat block. So it used to be the base druid used an action to go into wild shape, and then Moon Druid had the option to use it as a bonus action. There's actually one slight hiccup with this build, is now wild shape is always a bonus action. And that gets kind of weird with Armor of Agathys being a bonus action and wild shape being a bonus action. So what that ends up meaning is there's sort of a setup round with this build. And there's plenty of people who have setup rounds with builds. So I'm going to walk you through at level 5 what I would imagine your typical rotation would be, okay? And also the goal of it. So you're rocking 48 HP, okay? You got Tavern Brawler, you got Tough, you got Shield if you want to use it, you got spells, 2nd level Druid spells, you're probably rocking Spike Growth, you are rocking Moonbeam, you get that innately, you're rocking all these good spells, okay? I would probably focus on Spike Growth and using Moonbeam at this level, but you could do other things. Also Aid is great. The spells that I would pick up if I was playing this is that I would probably pick up Aid and Spike Growth, okay? But yeah, those are Spike Growth and Moonbeam are the important ones. So what I imagine you're doing is either before combat starts, because Armor of Agathys lasts for an hour, you're casting Armor of Agathys at your highest level, which is level 2 right now. You get 2 slots, okay? Or maybe you're casting it at level 1 and relying on the hit points you get from wild shape. Honestly, that wouldn't be a bad thing, but you wouldn't be doing as much damage. So let's say you cast Armor of Agathys at level 1, okay? Every time someone hits you, they take 10 cold damage. You use that as your bonus action. You've cast a spell, so you can't cast another spell this turn. So as your action, you cast Ray of Frost at a target, okay? That slows them down a bit, and you can add your wonderful Goliath ability, Frost Chill, and that does 1d6 more cold damage if you hit. And so you're doing 1d6 plus 2d8 cold damage to the target, and they're being slowed by 20 feet. Then with your 35 feet of Goliath movement, you're running up to them, and then you're in their face. You got your quarterstaff. Let's say they hit you, okay? And let's say they theoretically at level 5 do less than 10 damage, hopefully. Probably less than 10 damage. Then let's say your hit points go from 10, and then you take 8 damage. Oh, my temporary hit points are at 2 now, okay? Next turn rolls around. You bonus action wild shape into a brown bear. Now you have 9 temporary hit points, and Armor of Agathys is still up, okay? Then you get in their face. You can do a few things. Like I said, you could action Moonbeam because you can cast spells in wild shape, or you could action using your wonderful Tavern Brawler feat. I never even read Tavern Brawler, so this is a good time to read it. So with Tavern Brawler, with unarmed strikes, is, first of all, you reroll damage, you reroll ones, which is cool. But this is the thing that's pretty cool. When you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, you can deal damage to the target and also push it 5 feet away from you. You can use this benefit only once per turn. So what you could do is you could push them 5 feet away from you when you attack them in your bear form. And then because of your bear form, they're automatically prone because of your claw attack. And then you could add the Goliath Frost Chill. So they're prone, slowed by 10 feet, and there is a bear in their face, and they took a lot of damage, okay? Now to summarize that for round 1, it's going to be 1d6 for Frost Chill, and then you're going to be casting Ray of Frost, and then with your bonus action casting Armor of Agathys, and hopefully getting within range, and then on their turn they'll hit you for 10 damage, hopefully. It'll be about 21 DPR for the setup round, and then round 2, you do 1d6 for Frost Chill again, and then you have your bear attacks, which is 1d8 plus 3, plus 1d4 plus 3, and then Armor of Agathys is still on you, so you'll do 10 Armor of Agathys damage if they hit you, and that'll equal 27 DPR for round 2. Or you could have cast Moonbeam and you could have done a similar thing. So yeah, there's definitely a little bit of setup and it's kind of weird, but because of all the options you have, I think it's very fun. Okay, so from here on out, we're done with Warlock, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'll go to level 4. I think for now on, when I describe what you do, I'm going to assume you cast Armor of Agathys before combat started. The last example I gave was a situation where you weren't able to cast Armor of Agathys first, and so that kind of slows down everything a bit. Let's say now we're in a situation where that's not the case. So you're going to take the Grappler feat, and I would probably you can either go Strength or Dexterity. They're both at 13 right now. I'll probably go with Dex just to get your AC up when you are in your not bear form, you know? And then what the Grappler feat does, I should read the Grappler feat. Oh, I'm getting tired, guys. Okay, this is what the Grappler feat does now, guys. Let's say you already have Armor of Agathys on yourself, okay? And you're level 2 spells, so it's 10 damage. Combat starts, you action Spike Growth or Moonbeam, whatever makes sense, because I've been in situations where I'm in way too small of a room and I have way too many allies that would get hurt by it to be able to cast Spike Growth safely. So let's say you cast Moonbeam, okay? So you action cast Moonbeam and then you wild shape, okay? And then you run at the target. Next turn happens, you hit them with your unarmed strike, and you can push them 5 feet if you want. You can slow them down by 10 feet. You will make them prone in a Moonbeam if you hit. And then if you want, when you hit a creature with an armed strike as part of the attack action on your turn, you can use both the damage and the grapple option. So let's say you don't want to push them. You can instead grapple them and do the damage that you normally do for the hit. What's kind of weird about this is the claw makes them prone. So you can, with one hit, you can grapple, push, and prone them. And I don't know how that would all work, honestly, together. Like, what's a grappled and prone target? You know, anyway, basically you have a lot of options. And then you also have advantage on attack rolls against creatures that you have grappled. And then this one's very fun for me, guys. You don't have to spend extra movement to move a creature grappled by you if the creature is your size or smaller. How I imagine this would work is, let's say your allies are really close to the bad guy. What you could do is you could literally grapple someone on your turn and pull them like 40 feet away and you precast Moonbeam 40 feet away from your allies. And so you literally, you're like a druid, you're standing there and you cast Moonbeam and then you turn into a bear and you look at a guy. You sprint towards him next turn, you grab him and you drag him into your Moonbeam 40 feet away. I love that. That's so fun. And this is at level 6. Crazy. Okay, so just with the Grappler feat being added and us assuming that we cast Armor of Agathys before combat starts and we cast Spike Growth in round 1, in round 2, if we're able to cast the Spike Growth right in front of our target that we then run at, with our 40 feet of brown bear movement, with them grappled when we hit them, we can then, with our movement, drag them 40 feet across the Spike Growth, which will then add 16 D4 in damage to this round, which with 1 feat, we double our damage. Level 5, you get 3rd level spells, you automatically get Conjure Animals, which I don't think the new Conjure Animals is worth it compared to Moonbeam, because Moonbeam does half damage on a save. Conjure Animals does not. It's also a dex save, but then you get Sleet Storm, which is also kind of cool thematically, so I'll probably get that. There's not a lot of spells that are great for this specific build. Plant Growth situationally could be good if you want to make people be in difficult terrain. But yeah, there's some good options, but not a lot, especially because you're going to be in wild shape. But yeah, there's some decent ones to pick up. Again, I need to remind you guys, druids get to change all of their spells at a long rest. So just remember that. Very, very important detail. Level 6, we get improved circle forms. This one's very fun. Each of your attacks in a wild shape form can deal its normal damage type or radiant damage, which is nice because we don't have the new monster manual out yet as of the recording of this video. So we don't know exactly what they're doing, but I assume what's going to happen is monster stat blocks will no longer say resistant to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. It will just say resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. And so being able to add radiant damage to your attacks is nice. And then this is super nice because we already have the Eldritch Mind invocation that we got at level 1, which makes it so we have advantage on our concentration checks. And now we have increased toughness. You add your wisdom modifier to your constitution saving throw. That's insane. So that means at this level, well, what do we got? Let's look. So we got +3 to con because our wisdom is up. And so our con saving throw is +5 at advantage. That's pretty good. Okay. Now we're going to level 7. This is where things get crazy with with a lot of things, but first of all, you get 4th level spells, and as you know, as I said earlier in the video, we get I didn't even talk about Conjure Minor Elementals. Oh my god. But we also get Polymorph. Can't believe I forgot to talk about Conjure Minor Elementals, guys. But you also Ice Storm is cool. Again, this is just thematic. Pick that up if you want. So again, Conjure Minor Elementals. I'll talk about it quickly because a lot of people have strong opinions about this spell. This is the highest damage option for you, but that's because it's the highest damage option for every single character that has access to it if you are planning to upcast it. And we're going to go all the way up to the highest level spell slots for Druid. So yeah, this build is not centered around this spell at all, but it definitely can utilize it well because it's concentration, but you can have it active while you're in wild shape. If you lose concentration on it though, you have to undo wild shape to recast it. So even though it's really good, you also get Font of Moonlight. This is a new spell. It basically is like Spirit Shroud, but it does radiant damage and it gives you resistance to radiant damage. I know Spirit Shroud did radiant damage too. But it also radiates light, and then you can use your reaction to have a creature make a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the creature has a blinded condition until the end of your next turn. This is nice because you can cast this in wild shape. So like, let's say you cast Conjure Minor Elementals and then you lose your concentration. In wild shape, you can still cast this. So that's a good second option. And then Polymorph. So we discussed the Polymorph situation before. Essentially though, this makes it so that you're able to have some crazy forms. Also, a lot of people forget this about Polymorph. The challenge rating of creature that you can polymorph into is based on your character level to challenge rating. Again, we don't have the new monster manual, but in the base game, the T-Rex stat block is the strongest stat block. You probably want to wild shape most of the time, but even if you don't do the temporary hit point shenanigans after you drop wild shape, being an ice T-Rex is very fun. And I always strongly go with the flavor is free. My DM would let me use the T-Rex stat block, but visually I'm just a really, really, really big polar bear, if that makes sense. Because they just have like bite and claw attacks, I'm pretty sure. I could pull it up. So it's a challenge rating 8. It has less hit points than the giant ape, but it has multi-attack, bite, and tail. You could flavor this as something else. It has a higher reach though. So 10 reach, 4d12 plus 7, and then tail is 3d8 plus 7. And then you can't be concentrating on minor elementals because polymorph is concentration. But like if you stay in T-Rex form, you're doing a lot of damage. To be exact, you're doing 1d6 plus 4d12 plus 7 plus 3d8 plus 7 plus 20 for Armor of Agathys damage if you cast it at 4th level, for a total of 73 DPR in T-Rex form using Frost Chill, assuming you get hit at least once per round with Armor of Agathys. And you got the Armor of Agathys with 136 hit points. And if you cast Armor of Agathys at level 4, that means you're doing 20. Every time they hit you, they're taking 20 damage. And then you're on average, if you're hitting every time, with plus 10 probably, you're doing like 50 damage-ish. And then you can still do all the grapple shenanigans. With a 25 strength and being a huge beast. Again, you're not going to be having Moonbeam up or Spike Growth up, but you're still going to be able to move them around the battlefield. Let's say another caster in your party has some AoE damage spell, or let's say you just want to make it so they can't do anything. You don't prone them in this form, but like this is so good. But again, it's arguable that Wild Shape with Conjure Minor Elemental still does more damage, which it probably does. Actually, surprisingly at this level, Conjure Minor Elementals is doing less damage than Polymorph, but as we go up in level, we'll be adding 2d8 to every level above 4th level, so it'll very quickly outpace Polymorph, at least with the current monster manual that we have right now. So, but this is just kind of fun, you know? Options are fun, guys. Okay, so then we got level 8. Okay, this is super cool. So we get Elemental Fury, and we're going to go with Primal Strike. What I love about this is it adds to the thematics of the whole build. So once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with an attack roll using a weapon or a beast form's attack in Wild Shape, you can cause the target to take an extra 1d8 cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage. And we're obviously doing cold damage. So the first hit in combat, we can prone them, grapple them, push them. You probably can't grapple and push. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Can you grapple and push at the same time? That seems weird because you would have to like move with them. I don't know if you could do that. Anyway, but you have like 3 different options of things you can do. Okay. And then this level, we're going to add Charger, the Charger feat. Now, this is why we have 13 strength, is so we can use the Charger feat. I'll go ahead and raise your dex though, ironically. You could raise your strength if you're like, I don't know, want to for whatever reason. But when you take the dash action, your speed increases by 10 feet for that action. If you move at least 10 feet in a straight line towards a target immediately before hitting it with a melee attack roll as part of your attack action, choose one of the following effects: gain a 1d8 bonus to the attack's damage roll, or push the target up to 10 feet away if it is no more than one size larger than you. You can use this benefit only once on each of your turns. Ooh, okay. So guys, this does 2 things. First of all, it now implements a new strategy into the build. When you initially charge at an enemy, you can add 1d8 bonus to the attack's damage roll, and then you can push them up to 10 feet away. That's super cool. Just for all the pushing and stuff that you can do in this build already, this is great. Because I think you would be able to do 15 feet because of the Tavern Brawler. So you can push them 15 feet away if you want to, for whatever reason. Spike growth, that would be great. But also, I think this is an important thing, is with the Armor of Agathys setup, we want people to be hitting us more. And what this feat adds is a play style where you want to charge every attack. And because you want to charge every attack, you have to, after you hit someone with your melee attacks, you have to go away from them at least 10 feet away to be able to charge on your next turn. And what this does is it makes it so that enemies hit you, or they're likely to hit you more, because you're going to be proccing attacks of opportunity more often. You're going to want to be careful because you don't want to take too much damage. But like, let's say you're even surrounded by multiple enemies. You could run away from them, and if you have a lot of temporary hit points, you're going to be doing a ton of damage to them just by running away from them. And then you go in for the charge again. So I mostly picked this feat just for that interesting play style. And one thing you'll notice, I haven't raised our stats at all. And the main reason why is you actually don't want your AC to be too high, because if your AC is too high, then people aren't going to be hitting you and you aren't going to be doing Armor of Agathys damage as much. And that's why we picked Shield. Again, we can't do Shield in Wild Shape, but you know, it's still nice. Anyway, we're level 10 now. So I already kind of described it, so I'll be really short with this. But basically, the deal is you're you're either casting Moonbeam, Spike Growth, or you're saying, F that, I'm not going to do any of that, and I'm going to go with Conjure Minor Elementals. Oh, you also have Fire Shield at this level. Oh, there's going to be a lot of pre-casting to make the build stronger. But yeah, you got Fire Shield, or you're going to be casting Font of Moonlight. You just have a lot of options. You might be casting Polymorph and not even going into Wild Shape, or you're casting Polymorph to get that shit ton of hit points and then going into Wild Shape. Either way, you have options with Moonbeam and Spike Growth to do tons of damage. With all those movement options, you can push people, you can grapple people and have them go across all your movement speed through that area. Oh my god, there's so many great things you can do with this build, so many options. You're gonna be a big bear boy that everyone on the battlefield will be terrified of, because they're going to be scared that you're going to grab them and pull them into, I don't know. Oh, so good. Anyway, and that's level 10, guys. I'm feeling pretty good about the build at level 10. There is more to the build, but yeah, that's the basics of it. At level 10, we're looking good. Most campaigns don't go past level 10 or even get to level 10. So I could go on. I went into so much detail though. How about this, guys? So for the last 10 levels of the video, I decided I would just do a voiceover and I will just go over the levels relatively quickly. And at the very end, I'll have a level 20 build and damage rotation, just so you can see the potential of this build fully at level 20, because the basis of how the build plays is already done at level 10. Basically, we just get some damage number bumps as we go on. So level 9 Druid, we get 5th level spells, and that will just make Conjure Minor Elementals, if you're going for that build, do 2d8 more damage per melee attack. Level 12, level 10 Druid, we get Moonlight Step. This just gives you a bonus action teleport ability that you can use while you're in Wild Shape. You can use it, your Wisdom modifier, per long rest, and you can restore uses by expending a level 2 spell slot or higher. Level 11, you get 6th level spells. So again, Conjure Minor Elementals goes up in damage, or any other spell that you're upcasting. Level 12 Druid, we're just going to go for Resilient Constitution. This will just give us proficiency in Constitution saving throws, so we can maintain that concentration while we're in melee taking hits. Level 13 Druid, we get 7th level spells, so another 2d8 more in Conjure Minor Elementals if you're going for that build. And level 14, we get a big damage boost with Lunar Form. Once per turn, we can deal an extra 2d10 radiant damage to a target hit with your Wild Shape form's attack. And that Moonlight Step you can now share with an ally within 10 feet of you. Pretty sweet. Level 15 Druid, we get 8th level spells, and then we also get Improved Elemental Fury. So now our Primal Strike will do 2d8 damage once per turn rather than doing 1d8. At level 16, you're going to go for the Boon of Combat Prowess. This gets your Wisdom score to 18, and when you miss with an attack roll, you can hit instead. Once you use this benefit, you can't use it again until you start your next turn. Level 17 Druid, we just get our 9th level spell slots, which is really great. And then we also get Beast spells at level 18, which is our level 20 capstone. So we can cast any spells in Beast form, except for any spell that has a material component with a cost specified or that consumes its material component. This means now that we can cast that shield spell in Wild Shape finally. And then I'm going to quickly go over Wild Shape upgrades. So at level 9, we'll have access to Ankylosaurus. It doesn't have multi-attack, so it's arguably not as good as the polar bear. And then at level 15, we get the giant crocodile. I would argue that this is the best Wild Shape form for this specific build, because it does have multi-attack, and this does 3d10 plus 5 and 2d8 plus 5. And this one has the knocked prone ability, similar to the polar bear and bear. Also plus 8 to hit, and if you need a swimming speed, pretty nice to have. There are Wild Shapes you get access to later on, but none of them have multi-attack. For example, the Brontosaurus you also have access to. It'll be nice if you want to be gargantuan. And then eventually you get the Mammoth, but again, it does not have multi-attack. I'm going to start with the damage before concentrating on any spells, okay? While in Wild Shape. So we have 1d6 from Frost Chill, 2d8 from Elemental Fury, 2d10 from Lunar Form, and then the giant crocodile's attacks, we have 3d10 plus 5 and 2d8 plus 5. And then you have another 1d8 from Charger if you are able to run at least 10 feet before you attack in the first hit. That adds up to an average of 62 damage per turn if you hit with both attacks. Now let's assume that you cast Armor of Agathys at 8th level, which is kind of ridiculous. And let's say they hit you once, that's 40 damage. And then Conjure Minor Elementals, just for the highest damage possible, hitting twice per turn. That is 24d8 cold damage. So let's add that. 62 plus 40, 102. And then 24d8 averaged is 96. So that is 198 damage per round on average. If you hit with both hits, your wild shape temporary hit points is 54. You have 4 wild shape charges that you can cast as a bonus action to get 54 temp HP back on you every turn. Your con saves are plus 11 at advantage. And since you have beast spells, you can cast spells in wild shape, any spell. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to be making more videos in the future. If you have any recommendations of build ideas, or if you have any tips on how I make these videos, if you really want me to calculate the damage numbers and be more specific about the build, I could, but I feel like I like the variety and the choices. I like to be able to tell you guys that, hey, this character can do many things. I just feel like that's a bit different from a lot of other people's builds, and I feel like it could be a way to kind of set myself apart from other content creators in the same field. If you like Baldur's Gate 3, check out my old Baldur's Gate 3 build videos. I have a lot of really great ones there. And then also check out my Twitch channel. I stream like 3 or 4 times a week. I mostly am streaming just gaming content, but pretty soon here, my wife and I are going to do a Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough together on Twitch, and she is way funnier and more entertaining than me, so it'll be a treat for you guys. So yeah, links in the bio. Thank you so much. Peace.